In fact, on the topic of crowbars, for those of you who are still silly enough to think that somehow disarming American citizens, the law-abiding citizens, makes them safer, take a look at the FBI's statistics. Because in truth, more people get killed every year in this country from clubbing and crowbar attacks than they do from, quote, assault weapon. It's one of those little odd things that you really need to take into account, ladies and gentlemen. It does not protect a people to disarm them. Nobody can stand to see something along the lines of a Newtown tragedy. And there's still a lot of raw emotion, but there's also just a lot of useful idiots out there that are campaigning to saying, see, we told you so, and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, there are conspiracy folks out there that have been writing books from 20, 25 years ago telling us that the CIA already had drawn-up contingency plans to utilize when they decided to make their move to disarm the American populace. And among those contingency plans to get the people to go along with it included things like school shootings. Is it a coincidence that the shooter is the disenchanted son of a GE executive? Am I delving too far into a conspiracy theory here? I may be, but the fun of conspiracy theories, and like I've told you before, the great thing about tapping into the truth is you can take a look at conspiracy theories. I'm going to challenge you to think. I'm going to challenge you to use your brain. Now, if you hear what I have to say and decide, no, nada, fine, as long as you've actually thought about it. But hear me out. There is no question whatsoever that GE has a very close relationship with the current administration. There's also no question that when people rise to certain levels within corporations, sometimes they get these superiority complexes. Not that that would happen with anyone associated with the current occupier, right? Now, his wife had divorced him. One son still had a lot of contact with the other son, and the wife, no contact. According to the story, no contact with the father for over 2 years. Absolutely zero contact. No phone calls, no emails, no nothing. If you have a superiority complex and you feel like you've been betrayed, would you have any compunctions about having selected someone like that as a test for behavior modification purposes? That, I don't know, let's say some of these CIA spooks who go on shows like Coast to Coast and go on the Alex Jones Show and places like that, let's say that they're right and the CIA really is running these mind manipulation programs where they literally rewire the way you think and then send you out to go do stuff so they can say, oh, look, the lone nut, blah, blah, blah. Only in this case, it's not about achieving the political goal of an assassination, but in achieving the political goal of changing public policy, changing public perception. I mean, the incident where we had the NFL football player just a few weeks before the Newton shit. Well, actually, I don't even think it was more than a week. Kills his baby mama, drives over to the stadium, shoots himself. The discussion over gun control started there. This new round of gun control talks. Only that wasn't a assault rifle, was it? I've warned you in the past that the so-called progressives like to redefine things in order to shape your opinion of it. And the term assault rifle towards anything semi-automatic is exactly that, because if we're going to talk about assault rifles, then we should be talking about what the true military definition of that is. And if it ain't fully auto, it's not an assault rifle. Plain and simple. Go ask any shooter. They'll tell you that. Go ask any military person. They'll tell you that. Don't go ask a lawyer. Don't go ask a community organizer. I mean, while we're on that topic, there were over 5,000 shooting deaths in the state of Illinois, close to the Chicagoland area alone. They had a great community organizer there for a while. And the state of Illinois has the toughest, most restrictive gun ownership laws in the country. Well, how did that work out? Take another look at the difference between the highest number of concealed carry permits compared to the more restrictive states. Which ones had the highest level of gun violence in them? It's the states that have the highest, most restrictive laws. The more restrictive it is, the higher the rate of gun violence is, with just, one or two exceptions, maybe. After all, Connecticut itself has very restrictive gun ownership policies, but they typically don't have a lot of gun violence there. It's still higher than states that have extremely liberal carry permit laws, though. Ultimately, again, I make the simple point that when you disarm a law-abiding populace, you don't make them safer. You make them a target. Something as simple as the fact that we were able to win World War II not because we developed the atomic bomb, although that was the turning point that ended things quickly as far as the Japanese were concerned, but because the Japanese would not invade the United States mainland. They refused. The Emperor ordered the Commander-in-Chief of the Navy to come up with an invasion plan. They were very emboldened after the Pearl Harbor bombing, and they believed our military to be weak, which at the time, unfortunately, it kind of was. Not because of the men who served were in question, but because spending had been cut, and we were in our xenophobic period where we didn't want anything to do with a lot of other people, so we weren't planning on military actions. But the Commander-in-Chief of the Navy told the Emperor that we cannot invade the mainland of America. There would be a rifle behind every blade of grass. He wasn't afraid of our military people. He was afraid of the American people repelling an invasion. Had they not been afraid of that, the Second World War would have looked very different, at least for the people of California, Oregon, and Washington State. And Alaska, too, for that matter, I would imagine. Although I don't think Japan would have directed a lot in that area unless they were just trying to disrupt the Alaskan pipeline. That would have been smart strategy. But you need to think about that as you think about why certain people on the left want to disarm the American populace. Let's forget for a second that we actually have a constitutional right to bear arms. Let's remember that had there been mainland attacks on the West Coast, if they had been able to take just everything west of the Rockies from American control before the development of the bomb, Would we have even had time to develop the bomb? Would resources and manpower allocations changed? Could it have drastically tipped the whole war effort to a point that we may not have won? The short answer is yes, it most definitely could have. I'm not saying that it for sure would have, but there's no question that the possibility was there. That is the well-maintained militia that the Founding Fathers were talking about in the Second Amendment. They were not talking about trained professional soldiers. They were talking about the farmers and the shopkeepers and even the preachers that stepped up and picked up their rifles, which by then, that would have been an assault rifle, top of the technology chain at the time. They picked them up and they fought off the greatest superpower of the age for our revolution. That's exactly what the Founding Fathers were talking about, keeping firearms in the hands of everyday citizens who were wise enough to know when to use them. If there has to be reasonable, and that's a big word in this argument, if there has to be reasonable changes made to how sales are done, fine. But to demand people to register ownership and require fingerprinting, that's way too much like starting up profiling. And the last time I checked, I thought the left was against profiling. These are dangerous times, and I'm afraid, quite honestly. Ladies and gentlemen, I am afraid. Because I know there's a lot of folks right now who have guns like these, and others, and I'm sure these people are not satisfied. They're not done. The so-called assault rifles, which these things are not, it will not be where they stop. They want them all. They want you at their mercy because they're thinking the same thing that the Japanese were thinking before invading this country. It'll be far easier to keep us in line if they're the only ones who have guns. That's the reason behind buying up all the ammunition, even the ammunition that doesn't work for their weapons. It keeps it out of the hands of the people. And if the people will only have so much ammunition, then the guns become useless. I'm afraid of what's going to happen when they start coming for these guns. I'm afraid of what's going to happen when people start being charged with crimes just for owning a gun. We can't let our Constitution die. We can't let these people continue to shred it. We can't continue to let the occupier wipe his feet on it, wipe his butt with it, and try to flush it. The Constitution is our source of individual liberty. That's the show for today. Thanks for listening. Have a good night.